Welcome to People Doing Good for Others. Good morning, friends. This is People Doing Good for Others, where we honor and celebrate and hold in the light those who truly make significant contributions in our communities. I'm Gary York, and I'm grateful to be here, and thank you for joining us today. My featured guest is Dr. Zaphon Wilson. He's a Wilkes County native. He graduated from Wilkes Central and ASU. Today, he's the dean of the director and dean of the Public Administration Department at North Carolina Central University. And he was telling me about the essence of the program there and the contributions that he and he said a great team is making. And we're going to talk about him growing up here and his grandmother and grandfather in the First Baptist Church. So thank you for again joining us, and good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning.
It's an honor to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I saw you in the Hall of Fame in 2016, and I said, and then you were here for the forum a few weeks back, and I said, that's a relationship that I want to develop. So that's how we got started. So you want to talk about growing up here?
Absolutely. I don't think you could have grown up in a better community than I grew up in. It was Woodlawn and in North Wilkesboro. And we moved back from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I lived with my grandparents, Robert Gwynn Denny and Catherine Horton Denny. And so under their guidance, they instilled in me a whole bunch of really good qualities in terms of going to church every Sunday with my grandmother. And in the summertime, we had Sunday school, 11 o'clock service, and evening service. So my life revolved around First Baptist Church, Woodlawn Elementary School, and my community in Woodlawn. And I think that every lady on that street that I lived on spanked me somewhere to get me home. Yeah. And so it was like it takes a village to raise a child. Yep. We really had that village. And when I look back on it, I look at some of the successes of the folks I grew up with, the kids I grew up with. We grew, the Bailey kid went to Wake Forest, got a medical degree from Wake Forest. Clayton Adams went to NC State and got a degree in engineering. We had all kind of folks who graduated from Appalachian and from other schools in the area, Livingstone, Winston-Salem State, who became teachers. So we were raised at that particular time with a focus on achievement. And in that segregated community, I had black teachers who really sort of helped mold me. Because at that time they had corporal punishment, and I got spanked by every teacher in that Woodlawn Elementary School, and they kept us on the straight and narrow. And I had an excellent English teacher, Ruby Ingram, and later on in life I married her daughter, to her surprise. But and Milton Ingram was the principal there. He became my father-in-law, and he's one of the finest men I've ever known. They were lifetime educators. And out of that experience, early on at Wilkes Central, at Woodlawn Elementary, we integrated schools in '68 here, and I had to go over to North Wilkesboro Elementary. And I really didn't want to go. I wanted to go to Lincoln Heights. But it was an experience that I'll never forget. It was a more competitive, and it was a very competitive environment. And we were new in that environment. And so I was fortunate enough to have some really good 8th grade teachers who pushed me along. And when I graduated from the 8th grade and went to the 9th grade, in high school at Wilkes Central, I ran track and I played football there. I was on the student council there for a while. And I was exposed to a lot of different kinds of folks. And the way we were raised in Wilkes County and the way we were raised in my neighborhood was that you could do anything you wanted to do if you set your mind to it. And there are people there to facilitate that, who
Help you along the way.
help you along the way and kept you straight.
Wow.
You know, we all stray sometimes, but it was an experience that I still carry with me because I had a teacher in the 10th grade, and we were talking about this earlier, and we had to read Great Expectations by Dickens. And I really, for some reason, I like Dickens. And so she said, Zaphon, what track are you on? And I said, I'm on vocational track. She said, no. We're going to put you on college prep. You don't need to be on vocational. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that you can do some other things too. And so I took all those courses.
So the career track went from vocational to college prep just like that.
Yeah,
she saw this specialness in you.
Well, she saw something. I don't know what it was, but we went to the guidance council, Ms. Pearson, and we did all that stuff. And the next thing I knew, I was going off to college, and bumped into Ms. Pearson one day in the summer. And she said, you know, Appalachian's got a really good program. You should apply for that, because I'd applied at Livingstone, and I was headed there. And so when I went up for the interview with O.K. Webb and Jay Wentworth, who was the dean and assistant dean of the college, general college there, I went into the program. It was Upward Bound. And one of my good friends, who was in that program with me, he was from Brevard. His name was Archie Irvin. And Archie and I actually majored in political science together. And after I went off to Atlanta University to get a PhD, Archie went to UNC Chapel Hill, where he was working as the director of multicultural affairs. And so we just stayed in touch over all these years. And now he's the Associate Vice Chancellor at Georgia Tech University for Multicultural Affairs. So we had a really strong group of black students when I went there, went to Appalachian. And Appalachian was a really transformative experience for me. It was, I had some great instructors, some of the best I've ever had. And I'm still in contact with many of them. As a matter of fact, the new generation of political scientists at Appalachian, we still communicate constantly and are involved in a lot of professional activities together. So that network that we made at Appalachian is still holding strong. And so I appreciate everything that Appalachian did, but that wouldn't have been possible without Wilkes Central High School.
Several years ago, you were a significant award through Appalachian State. Tell us about that honor, if you will. The name of the program.
It was the Faces of Courage.
Right.
And I was nominated for that award, and the chancellor went ahead, they voted me in for it, and I was very appreciative of that. And it was the work I did there with developing the Black Faculty Staff Association, helping to recruit black students and helping to recruit black faculty members there. So Harvey Durham was the provost at that time, and I worked very closely with him as his assistant on multicultural affairs. And we did a few things that sort of I wanted to impact Appalachian in a particular way out of very selfish reasons, because I wanted to build a professional black community on the campus that could do things together across disciplines, whether it was research, service, or scholarships. So we were able to help expand the number of black faculty members there. And I'm sure that they'll tell you that there's not enough right now. And it was really good work, and it impacted the students in a lot of ways.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of my favorite questions. You're calling to education, and that the gift that you have of embracing folks and lifting them. How this calling to be an educator?
That's a good question, because when I was working in city planning down in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, as I was finishing my master's degree, I got a call from one of my professors, Richter Moore, who was a longtime department chair in political science and criminal justice at Appalachian. And he said, Zaphon, we have a grant, and we'd like for you to run this grant on land use planning and zoning. I said, what does that mean? And he said, well, you'll set up workshops and seminars in Western North Carolina that address the issue of land use planning and zoning. And it was an offshoot from Jim Hunt's Balanced Growth Plan for North Carolina. And so I said, well, I just got married, and it was an exciting time, and so we can go back to Boone, and I can still be close to my grandmother, and we can be close to our family in Wilkes. So we went back to Appalachian and set up workshops all over Western North Carolina that dealt with land use planning, because it was a new concept, and it was a concept that people had to sort of step into slowly, because you're limiting what people can do with their land. And that's not a good thing ever. So it worked out well. And after a year and a half, 2 years of that, the grant ran out. And instead of reapplying for the grant, the grantor said, well, you guys have set up enough stuff to be able to charge now for your services. So Richter Moore and Terry Epperson, who was the department chair of the regional planning and geography department, said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give you a joint appointment in political science and in geography and planning. I said, that's great. So with that joint appointment, I started teaching. And it was like, Terry Epperson said, you know, the classroom is your environment. You're just a natural at that. But I worked really hard. Well, thank you.
I'm sure.
I worked really hard and on that, and it worked out well. And then about 2 years into that, at that time, the Board of Governors, North Carolina Union City Board of Governors, had a doctoral studies program. And the Appalachian nominated me for that program, and I was selected for it. That's when I went to Atlanta University to work on my PhD, and it was in political science, public administration, that kind of stuff. And it paid my salary for that year. And I was very fortunate, because at the end of that year, I got a National Science Foundation fellowship through the department that paid all my tuition fees and gave me a stipend. And by that time, we had a little boy, Kevin, our son, and I said, you know, this is not enough money. So on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, I worked at Emory University Hospital as a messenger. And that's like 3 hospitals connected together from with underground tunnels. Right? Yeah, underground tunnels. And I would just deliver messages to the different hospitals. And that closed the gap for me. But I've always worked, so it was not unusual, because I had so much study time.
You told me about being 14 and having a summer job, and your fascination for reading and learning and words. So tell us about that experience.
It began with my grandmother bringing home the Highlighter magazine and the Reader's Digest from. She was a domestic worker, and she worked for a family, a couple of families in North Wilkesboro that would discard that stuff. She would bring it home for us to read.
Oh my goodness.
And so I really I enjoyed it because they had the word power section in the Reader's Digest. And I'll just go in and study those words without her, without even knowing, why. It was just something to do. And so that really helped a lot. And so with that, it sort of pushed me in a particular direction, and I didn't even know I was being pushed in that direction by my grandmother. But then when the Neighborhood Youth Corps program came about, I was able to get a job through that program, federal program, when I was 14 years old, to work at the Wilkes County Library.
Wow.
And I loved doing that. I mean, I cut the grass and cleaned up the place, and it was janitorial work. But at lunchtime, I could read Sports Illustrated. Now, I guess the reading part started when I was a little boy working with my grandfather at Horton's drugstore. And he worked there for 55 years. He started working when he was 11. And at the drugstore, they had all these magazines in the basement. And I would sit in the basement and read, Superman, Batman comics, and all that stuff.
So you were a lot of self-educating too, with a lot of school and on your own.
Well, one of the things that really is fascinating is that, and all the surveys show that when kids start to read early, they become more and more successful. Yeah. The reading materials may have been secondhand, but I also had the Ebony Pictorial History Guide, and we'd always thumb through that. And I just remember seeing Jesse Owens and all those athletes that did so well, and just looking at that, and it was an interest for me, and so we just did that. That's what my brothers and I did.
Dr. Zaphon Wilson, tell us about, I want to make sure we understand right now at North Carolina Central University, you were sharing with me developing credibility certification, if you will, in this public administration. I'll make sure we understand that, if you will.
Yes. Well, first of all, public administration, the master's program that we have, it's a Master's of Public Administration called an MPA degree. It was started in 1985, and they had some outstanding leadership over the years in that program. Tyrone Baines is one of the people who helped start that program, and Dr. Baines is on our board, our advisory board for that program now. And we have educated more African American administrators, public administrators, than any other institution in the nation. Right now, we have the largest number. We graduate the largest number of African American women in the nation with Masters in Public Administration degrees. We were the second largest MPA program in North Carolina, behind UNC Chapel Hill, and we are very proud of that distinction. And we offer specializations. One of our biggest ones is the nonprofit specialization, nonprofit organization, because many of our students want to work in nonprofits, and several of them have started their own nonprofits. So we encourage public service in the community, and we encourage our students to do internships with nonprofits. And we also encourage our students to work with programs like Meals on Wheels and other kinds of programs that are designed to help the elderly and those who are shut in. So
wow. Servantship.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't be a leader without being a servant first.
Well, you met Wesley Triplett out here a minute ago, and I told you you'd been an intern year, and y'all just connected on that.
The internship opportunity is really the gateway into professional employment that our students are looking for. And I always tell them that when you're in an internship, if you can't find a parking place, you're late. You're late. You can't be
Oh,
late.
Dr. Wilson.
You be
If you can't find a parking place, you're late.
you're late. And late is not good.
Late is not
So you
good.
better be 10 minutes early than 10 minutes late.
Yeah.
You know, and so that.
You were 20 minutes early this morning. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd rather be early than late.
Yeah.
And then we always tell the students that, you know, there are professional boundaries that you have to stay inside of. And they know what those are because we talk about those. We have a handbook that talks about the do's and don'ts of the internship. And we talk about the kinds of professional relationships that are important and how important it is to stay in your lane and do what you're supposed to do. Do you. You know, you don't have to worry about all the stuff around there.
Do you.
Just do you. You know, because you're ready.
Wow.
You're ready. After 2 years of study and listening to, we bring in speakers all the time from the state government, local government, county government, even some, we had Congressman Butterfield do a symposium for us. And so you see these people, and that's what you model your behavior after.
So you tell them you can be anything you want to be.
Anything you want to be. It just takes hard work, sacrifice, and commitment. And I learned that early in life. And one of the best places that I can, you know, sort of compare it to is when I played football at Wilkes Central High School under, Red Hoffman and Junior Gross and Jack Branch. And it was like you were there on time, you did your work, and you worked till you were exhausted. They worked us till we were exhausted, and then you had to do more.
Yeah.
And so that kind of teamwork, support, sacrifice, setting goals, you know, at the time, you thought, man, these guys, what's wrong with these guys? But they were absolutely on point. Right. So those kinds of behaviors after, it was 4 years, 4 short years. But that stuff.
You went through integration.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Talk about that just a little bit. That year, if there was a year 68, you said?
Yes. It was one of the things I can say about Wilkes County is that we put our best foot forward in that effort. We didn't have some of the problems that other communities had with integration because we had folks who sort of helped guide that process, and they were all on the same accord. So I don't think that I was treated any differently than anyone else at North Wilkesboro Elementary School or at Wilkes Central High School. I mean, there were groups that ran together and there were all kinds of different things going on socially, but I think that the teachers made the difference in that community because they were about us, getting an education and getting on with our lives in a positive way. So there were teachers, black and white.
Almost a seamless transition then, just.
There were a few bumps, but not anything really, serious. We knew it was going to happen. We knew it was coming. We were prepared for it, and but it was done very quietly. And whatever problems there may have been, they were discussed at another level. They weren't discussed in the classroom. Right. They were. Wow. Yeah, it was, and I got a lot of support from principals and from teachers, and still do. Yeah. As a matter of fact, the Faces of Courage Award that year, it was a monsoon. It was terrible. The weather was horrible, and Coach Branch drove to Boone. And he was not in the best of health at that time because I was there.
Dr. Wilson.
Yeah.
What a compliment. Wow. Hall of Fame, 2016, Wilkes County.
Coach Branch was there too.
Tell us about that emotion or how that.
When I got that call, I cried. I thought my brother had called me as doing a prank on me. We prank each other all the time, but it's like, oh, this is for real. And so it was like, wow, what a humbling experience. I mean, me? And so I appreciate everything that the hall did to recognize what little bit I've done in my life. And if it can shine a light on others, that's all for the better.
Yeah. The forum we had a couple of months ago, you were a significant part of that. To me, that's one of the most significant enhancements for children that I know. Tell us about that morning.
Yeah, I talked to, I had a table of students from all over Wilkes County, and we're talking about what does it take to be successful.
What does it take?
Not being afraid to make mistakes, setting goals. Everybody makes mistakes, but you have to get back up and keep going. And we fail sometimes. And sometimes you learn more from the failure than you do from the success. So in many cases, you have to just work a little harder, a little longer than the kids who have the gifts and talents to do certain things. But that doesn't mean you cannot make a contribution. And it doesn't matter where you start in life. What matters is where you finish. So finish strong every time. So take life, I take life in just chunks. There are things I have to do every day to get to the point where I want to go. Or I want our programs to go, or my family to go.
Let's go back to public administration and developing that accreditation.
Yes.
What an honor to be bestowed upon someone as we did on you, to give you that challenge to bring us from somewhere to credibility. And standing in front of that classroom with those interns and the 25 things this is the list, you do these things.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about how that must feel to have arrived, if you will, to have accreditation. To me, that is an incredible experience.
It's a look at yourself. We take our program as a whole and we look at what we do and how we do it and how we can sort of explain to other professionals what we do and what value it brings and how we assess student learning and program goals and objectives. And one of the things that we had a graduation last Saturday, and we graduated 32 students in our program, a winter graduation. And that was probably the finest group I've ever worked with. These are folks, we went to...
These are master's degree?
Master's in public administration.
Okay.
And this is a group that had we had an Africa trip, a 2-week Africa trip, Liberia, Monrovia, Liberia, where they worked with the ministries of government for the nation. And one student ran out of financing. The group of students in that cohort got together and paid her tuition and fees so she could go. That was fantastic. In 35 years, I'd never seen that happen. Where a group of students, they're all professionals now in this executive program, they were all executives, but they said, we started together, we're going to finish together. And that's exactly what they did.
You're going to be part of it.
Yeah, that's exactly what, yes.
Wow.
And it's like, how do you,
My goodness.
I mean, those are the kind of students we work with. And that is a humbling experience, and they made us better. They actually made us better as a program. And so I want to brag about them for the rest of my life.
Me too.
Because they didn't have to do that. And in this environment today, where education is so expensive, you get to a point where students do run out of money. Yeah. And what can you do? Because our scholarship funds are very limited, and we need to expand those. I was fortunate because I graduated from college from a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD. And all I owed was $4,000 from my undergraduate loans. Everything else was paid for. Those days are over when you have money coming out of the federal government to help pay for students to go to college. It's the best investment our communities can make, is to educate young people and bring them back home so they can be productive citizens, like Mr. Triplett out there.
Dr. Zaphon Wilson, we want to thank you for honoring us. We want to thank Wilkes Communications and River Street. And what an inspiring 30 minutes for me. I'm just sitting on the end of my seat wondering some incredible things have been said. And you talked about, if it's to be, it's up to me. And so
Absolutely.
Finish with us about your life and as an educator and a professional and taking advantage of the opportunities, if you will.
I can't, take credit for this. It was, there were a lot of people involved in my development and encouragement and pushing me forward. From Miss Bailey down the street, who spanked me when I got in a fight with Buster, her son, to chancellors at other universities and faculty members at undergrad school. As a matter of fact, I knew that I was going to be a professor when I took Dr. Jawad Barghouthi at Appalachian for the introduction of political science class. And it met Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 2 to 3. And so one Friday afternoon, he said, well, we're going to cut short class today. I have a tea time and at 3:30. And I said, you know what? I can do this. If you can take off Friday afternoon and go play golf, that's the job I want.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Honor.
It's great.
Dr. Zaphon Wilson. He's the Director of Public Administration at North Carolina Central University, a tremendous advocate, a person of heart and servantship, and believes in setting a good example for people. And thank you for being with us today, and I hope you'll be back the next time. I'm Gary York, People Doing Good for Others. You honor us. Thank you very much.